Hello, this is the Stories Beside channel. I release videos every day for you. Subscribe and click the bell. The passenger train slowed down. Bridges, houses, traffic lights flashed in the compartment window. Looking into the compartment, the conductor said, "We are approaching. Parking 2 minutes." The man put his things in a bag and left the compartment. Passengers with suitcases and travel bags were crowding in the aisle, preparing to leave. "Do you know where to find a hotel in this city?" asked an elegantly dressed man to the conductress. "I don't know," she replied. "Do you ask the cab drivers? Do they know?" "Thank you. Have a good trip." "Have a good trip." The man got off the platform and looked around. Night had already fallen on the city. The station building was faintly lit by lanterns. He passed by, turned the corner, but saw no cars with checkers on the roof. At a loss, the man stopped under the taxi stand sign. He had come to this unfamiliar city on very important business. Now he didn't know how much time he was spending here, but he was determined. He planned to finish everything quickly, so that his life's dream would finally come true. The man spotted a car that was shining its headlights on the wet asphalt, moving in his direction. He waved his hand, and the car stopped. "I'd like to find a hotel to spend the night," said the stranger to the driver, and he noticed a strange accent with which the man spoke not local or what. "Get in," the driver offered a ride. "You won't get there on foot, it's a bit far." The man sat down on the back seat, thanking the driver. "But I didn't ride for free," he warned. Yes, I have money. Don't worry." The passenger slipped his hand into his coat pocket and pulled out a colored bill. He held it out to the bomber. "But no Russian money?" asked the driver of the passenger. "Unfortunately, no. I've just arrived. But if it is possible to exchange it somewhere, I would be very happy. I only have euros with me, and I need dollars." The driver looked at the passenger carefully through the rearview mirror. Odd, even a little ridiculous, unsure. He had taken out a wad of euros and was now showing him, a stranger he was seeing for the first time in his life. Crazy or just plain stupid. Usually business travelers would kill themselves for the last penny and even ask cab drivers for a receipt to account for the trip. "I know where there's a money changer nearby." "Let's go," said the driver, and the car laced the body with wheels on the asphalt. After a while, the driver slowed down and without turning off the engine said, "Over there, on the corner. See, it's lit up. They change currency there and go. And I'll wait here." The passenger got out of the car, leaving his travel bag on the back seat, and headed in the direction indicated. The man did not hear how the driver quietly got out after him, and trying not to stop, followed the dark shadow on his heels. Not reaching a few meters to the exchange, the stranger stumbled. The laces of his shoes were untied. He bent down to tidy up his shoes when suddenly something heavy fell on his head. The impact sent a sharp pain through his head, and then darkness fell. The new day began with a ghastly rain, shining on the ground like a sieve of fall drizzle. Its droplets ooze across the window, casting a wistful glow. This fall, the rains had been particularly frequent. It was as if nature was tired of the summer heat and drought, and now it was trying with all its might to get drunk with life-giving moisture. Adriana looked out the window, peering through the ladles of spray on the glass. Ethan had just fallen asleep. All night he cried, not knowing how to comfort his brother. The 5-year-old wrapped a piece of bread in a clean handkerchief, dipped it in the sweet tea, and brought it to the half-year-old boy's lips. On the bread, she said to the little brother in a quiet voice, "There is nothing else. Here, Mom will come and feed you." The child grabbed the roll with his mouth. The girl stroked his head. Gradually, the baby calmed down and fell asleep. Why hadn't she thought of giving him some bread in his tea before? She could have slept herself if he had calmed down and not cried all night. Adriana looked out of the window, standing on a stool. Her mother had left yesterday. She still wasn't home. Aunt Betty from the neighboring driveway showed up in the yard. The woman put the halves on the bench and began to dust them off, taking one at a time, and putting the clean ones into a neat stack. The girl watched her Aunt Betty. The kind neighbor sometimes fed Adriana, bringing her from the yard to her house. When her mother gave birth to Ethan, the girl stayed with the kind woman for a few days. Those were such happy days. Aunt Masha's house was always clean and warm. On the table was a vase with cookies and candy, and for dinner the neighbor cooked delicious meat cutlets with pasta. Aunt Betty also bought Adriana pencils and a sketchbook. In the evenings they drew together. The girl tried to draw her father, mother, and herself next to her brother. It didn't always work. Then Daddy was sad. Then Mom was ugly. And still she liked to visit her neighbor. At the end of the yard, her mom appeared. Adriana rejoiced, pressed her face against the legal glass. Her mother walked shakily, barely moving her feet. The woman's hair was shot, and her cloak was all stained. It was as if she had been wallowing in the mud. "Adriana, are you boozing again?" shouted Aunt Betty to her. "Shame on you. You're a young mother with 2 kids." The neighbor began to shame the drunken woman. "Leave me alone. It's not for you to judge me," snapped Adriana's mother, and not a firm gate headed for her entrance. On the ears no, rushed to her neighbor. "Today you listen to me. You asshole." Ethan was screaming all night. A half-a-year-old kid in the arms of a 5-year-old girl for 24 hours. "What are you trying to do? Kill the kids? Back off. It's none of your business." "Maybe it's none of my business, but I called the police and child welfare. That way you'll know when the kids are taken away. Maybe then you'll get your head on straight and start thinking." What was that drunk woman yelling? "Try calling your apartment with all your stuff, your bedroom." "Oh, you've scared me. You watch yours." Didn't sleep in a drunken stupor. The neighbor came close to the woman, shook her by the shoulders. "Look what you look like. Look who you've turned into." After all, a beautiful woman was smart, working, and now you're a slut and an alcoholic. There's no other word for it. "Piss off," I said. The woman pushed the neighbor and entered the entrance of a 2-story wooden barrack. Sighing, Adriana climbed off the stool and went into the hallway. Now her mother would fall into the house, fall to the floor, and have to drag her to bed. She'd be lying in the hallway, unable to get up. As long as Ethan did not wake anyone, the girl thought. For as long as Adriana could remember, her mother had always been caring and loving. She worked as a nurse at the hospital. From work, she would run to the daycare center to pick up her daughter. And then they'd rush home together. Mom would cook dinner and Adriana would spin around her in the kitchen with her dolls. When Dad came home from work, Mom would set dinner on the table. Dad always joked around a lot. He was a very kind man and loved Mommy and Adriana. Most of all, the girl loved it when he rode her on his shoulders. They would also go to the yard together, and Daddy would swing her on the swings. One day, Adriana heard a noise in the big room and came running to see what was going on. Her father was twirling her around the room in his arms and kissing her, kissing her, kissing her. "Leave it. I'm getting dizzy," she asked, laughing. Dad put Mom on the couch, and he squatted down and stroked her stomach. "Adriana, soon you will have a brother," the man said, seeing that the daughter was looking at her and her mother with surprise. The girl sat down next to her. "Is he in your belly?" she asked her mother, and she did not answer, only smiled. "And in my belly, my good girl," Daddy said. "Soon he will appear, and you will play with him, ride him in a stroller in the yard, feed him from a spoon." Adriana pouted his lips. "I like to draw." "Well, can he?" "Not when he's little, he can't." "Then you'll teach him," Dad said. After a while, his belly began to grow bigger and bigger, turning into a huge ball. One day, the father found his daughter crying bitterly in her room. "Adriana, my daughter, what's wrong? Did someone hurt you?" He was worried. Daddy took the girl's face in his palms and looked carefully into her eyes. "Tell me, who did it to you? I'll punish him too much." "Brother." The girl cried out in tears. "What brother?" Didn't understand the father, who's in Mom's belly. Adriana didn't stop. How could he hurt you? He was not born yet. The man stroked his daughter's hair, trying to calm her down. Let him not be born. Adriana, smearing tears on her cheeks. Why not? What are you saying? Don't you want a brother? I don't. Look how big Mommy's belly is. It'll burst like a balloon and she'll die. Adriana sobbed again. Her father looked at his crying daughter in surprise at first, but then he laughed and hugged her. It's silly. Nothing will happen to your mom, he said. You lived in her tummy first too. Mommy gave birth to you, and now we're all together. The girl looked at her daddy incredulously. Surely she won't die when the baby brother is born, she asked. Of course she won't die. Don't even worry. A month later, together with Daddy, they took Mom and brother from the hospital. It was a very happy and joyful day. The day before, Daddy vacuumed the carpets at home and dusted, and Adriana, like a tail, followed him. And you will also swing him on the swing, the girl asked her father. Will you ride him on your shoulders and throw him up to the ceiling and then catch him? Adriana, he is still very small, and at first he will always sleep and drink milk and play. I didn't understand Adriana. When he grows up, he'll play. Take your time. Time, baby. Mom came out of the hospital with a blue whistle. Dad ran up to her, took the baby in his arms, and handed Mom a bouquet of flowers. He lifted the corner of the blanket and showed Adriana the baby brother. How ugly, the girl exclaimed. Is he going to stay this red for the rest of his life? The parents laughed. At home, everything revolved around the little brother. In the morning, her father took Adriana to kindergarten. And in the evening, when he brought her home, the first thing she did was to run to the crib where Ethan was sleeping. She would take his hand, run her little fingers over it, stroke his tummy. Her mother did not allow her to hold her brother in her arms, but she gave Adriana a bottle of formula. And the girl fed the baby, saying, "Eat every last drop. Then you will grow big and strong." One day, the father did not come to pick up Adriana at the kindergarten. All the children had already been taken away, and she was playing alone on the playground, always looking towards the gate. But there was no sign of her father. When it was already dark, the teacher took the girl home. The door was opened by a neighbor, Aunt Betty. Adriana ran into the apartment as usual, rushed to the crib where Ethan lay. The woman in the hallway talked quietly about something, and the teacher left. Then the mother came back. Her face was tear-stained. She collapsed helplessly on the couch and sobbed. Aunt Betty stroked the woman's hair and shoulders, calmed her down, saying, "What a grief. Lord, how is it to be alone with two orphans?" Adriana's daddy died in the service. He was a fireman. It was the day the vegetable store caught fire. May was dry and windy. The flames spread quickly through the building, covering the walls and roof. One of the floor joists collapsed, crushing a man. When he was pulled out, he was already dead. When Adriana's mother was told of the terrible tragedy that had happened to her husband, she completely lost her mind. She was thrashing around like a madwoman, screaming and sobbing. The ER doctors had to try their best to give her some shots and calm her down. On the day of her father's funeral, a neighbor's Aunt Betty sat at home with Adriana with a turret. While the baby slept, she arranged the plates on the table. "Bring glasses, baby," Aunt Betty asked the girl. "Otherwise people will come. And we haven't set the table yet." "Why would people come?" Adriana asked naively. "It's the custom. When a man goes to the next world, he is buried and then memorialized." The woman tried to explain. "What do you mean, memorialized?" The girl didn't stop, putting the glasses on the table. "It means that they eat, drink kissel, and remember the deceased with a kind word. And we also get kissel at the daycare center. We'll change someone too." Aunt Betty looked sadly at the girl. Smart beyond her years, Adriana waited for her answer. The woman hugged the little girl, pulled her close, and secretly waved away a tear. A tear rolled down her cheek. "My poor girl. Life is complicated, and it's hard for me to explain everything to you. Just remember that Daddy loved you very much and will always be watching Cloud how you live. He will also watch how friendly and smart you are, growing up with your little brother. So you never leave the car behind." Adriana did not understand anything from what the neighbor said, but decided that she would help her mother in everything, so that Daddy could see it on his Cloud and praise his daughter. Adriana's mother took the death of her husband very hard. She loved him very much from the school bench. She believed that fate had long ago decided everything for them and united them into one whole. When her husband was gone, she started drinking. At first, she drank in the evenings after putting the children to bed, sat in the kitchen with a bottle of vodka and a shot and cried, remembering such a short, full of happiness and love family life. And then some people began to appear in the house. They drank, yelled, sometimes fought. When her mother did not pick Adriana up from kindergarten, the teacher brought the girl home and told her to run, and I would wait for you to come out. Often the door to the apartment was locked from the inside. Adriana had to spend hours pounding her fists on the plywood paneling and shouting, "Mom, open up, it's me." Adriana's mother was either asleep, drunk on vodka, or having fun in the kitchen with her friends. Once home, Adriana sat next to Ethan's crib and talked to him. "Don't be afraid," she said to her brother, who looked at her with blue eyes. "Our mommy is just a little sick. You'll see, she'll get better and everything will be like before." Adriana learned to make her own formula, and when she wasn't, she heated a bottle of milk from the store in a pot of hot water. Days and weeks and months went by, and Clara did not stop drinking the opposite. Now the woman began to disappear from home for days at a time. She came back drunk to pieces, not thinking anything, and most often, barely entering the door, fell to the floor, where she lay until she came to her senses. One morning, Adriana went into the kitchen. Her mother was washing the dishes. It seemed to the girl as if it had become the same. There were no bottles or shot glasses anywhere. The kitchen table was clean, and even the gingerbread was in a plate. "Mommy, we need to feed Ethan," said the girl. "Now my good one will heat up the milk. You'll give it to your brother." The mother poured milk from the bag into a clean bottle and put it to heat it on the water bath. "Do you want some tea?" "Daughter, pour, please." The girl sat down on a stool by the table and took a gingerbread. She thought only about one thing: if only no one had come to visit her mother and brought vodka. Finally, everyone was fed. Clara started to get dressed. "Are you leaving, Mommy?" Adriana asked fearfully. She knew that Mommy would leave and then come back with a bottle, and she would be drunk again. "No, sweetie, we'll all go for a walk to the park together," the woman replied. We got dressed and let a blanket in the stroller. Overjoyed, Adriana started pulling clothes out of the closet, got dressed, and then popped the stroller in the middle of the room to prepare a spot for her baby brother. She didn't notice her mother lurking in the kitchen, pouring alcohol into a glass and knocking it over. A little wrinkled his nose. The woman looked out the window for a few minutes and then repeatedly splashed more vodka into the glass. Clara went back into the room to the children. Adriana was already dressed, and Ethan was lying in the crib. His mother had moved him to the couch and put him in a beautiful knitted suit with a bunny on the chest. Then the woman walked over to the surgeon and pulled something out of Beggar's crystal vase of candy. "Here," she held it out to her daughter. "Put it on and never take it off." In Adriana's hands was a braided cord on which hung a small wooden horseshoe. She obediently put the thing around her neck, but still she asked, "What is it, Mom?" In her mother's hands, she saw exactly the same pendant of a man on a braided cord. She was running her finger along the wooden horseshoe, whispering something quietly, as if she were talking to someone. The girl tugged at her skirt. "Mommy, what is this? Why do I have to wear this shoelace?" The woman squatted down in front of her daughter, looked her in the eyes with her alcohol-fogged gaze, and said, "These two identical pendants your father made long ago. When he and I started dating, he had one and I had the other. And now I want you to have them, Ethan. And I get it." Adriana nodded, though she didn't understand anything. But since Mama said so, let that horseshoe lanyard hang around her neck, especially since Daddy made it. Clara put the second pendant around her son's neck and hid it under the knitted bone. It was warm and dry outside. Slaga wanted the stroller in front of her, and Adriana walked beside her. Sometimes she scooted forward, bouncing, spinning. The girl could no longer remember when she and her mother had walked together. "Wait here," her mother said, and put the stroller next to the entrance to the store. "I'll be right back." When the mother came out, and in her hands she had a bag with a bottle and ice cream plumber, which the woman held out to her daughter. They took another walk in the park. Clara bought a ticket for the carousel. Adriana waved cheerfully to her mother, sitting on the horse, and the latter strolled beside her. Katia had the stroller with Ethan sleeping in front of her. And then the mother put Adriana on the bench, put the stroller next to her, and gave the girl a handful of candy. "Sit here and don't go anywhere," the mother told her daughter if she woke up. In the pocket of the stroller, a bottle of milk. "Roger me." Adriana nodded. She watched her mother walk away from the park for a while. And then she was distracted by the children playing ball in the playground. She wanted to run with them, too, but Adriana couldn't move away from the stroller where her brother slept. Time passed, and Mom was still gone. Passers-by sometimes came up to the 5-year-old girl and wondered why she was alone with a baby. "Where are your parents?" strange uncles and aunts asked. "My mom will come soon. She went away for a minute," answered the girl. But Clara was still not there. There were fewer and fewer people in the park. Ethan woke up and cried. Adriana rolled the stroller back and forth next to the bench to calm her brother. She was looking toward the end of the alley. When would her mother's figure appear there? The girl gave Ethan milk from a bottle. Having eaten, he poured the edge of the diaper in his hands and looked at his sister, who was already ready. He burst into tears. Finally, she got up resolutely and wanted to leave the park. Should she go home? Mom is probably there, she thought. But at the same moment, she sat down on the bench again. The girl was used to obeying, so she decided since her mom said to wait here, then she should wait. She took out a candy from her pocket, as suddenly she heard a voice. "Whose girl is this?" Next to the stroller stood an elderly man with a broom in his hand. "Mommy's," Adriana answered timidly. She was tired, very hungry and very upset by her mother's long absence. "Why are you sitting here alone all day, Betty?" asked the park worker. Apparently it was a watchman or a janitor. "My mom and my brother and I came for a walk, and then she left and said she'd be back soon. I wait and wait and wait, and she's still gone." And then all the tension, worry and fear came out in a flood of tears. Adriana cried, and Ethan cried after her. "What's wrong?" The older man sat down beside her on the bench and stroked her hair. "Come on, don't get wet. Will your mom be found? How long has she been gone?" "I don't know," the girl went on, the man sobbing. Looking at her, hesitating, he scratched the back of her head with his hand, then said, "Come on, let's go. I know where we can get help finding your missing mother," he added. "Come on, don't be afraid." With one hand, he rolled the stroller down the alley, and with the other, he held Adriana's hand. They came to a small wooden building at the back of the park. The man put a broom at the entrance and led the girl inside. He rolled the stroller with the child and called out softly, "Ward, come here." A woman in her 50s came out at the man's call. She was dressed plainly with her hair in a bun at the back of her head and thick lens glasses on her nose. "What do you want?" "Look, I was walking down the alley to close the gate to the park, and she was sitting on a bench with a stroller, rocking her baby, saying she was waiting for her mother. But I've been watching them for a long time. They came to the park at lunchtime and have been sitting there all day." The woman scrutinized Adriana, then shifted her gaze to the sparrows and the boy screaming in the stroller. "Are they lost?" she asked. "No, we were waiting for Mommy," Adriana replied. After calming down a bit, She said she would be back soon, but she didn't come. The woman bent over the stroller and pulled out the baby. "Jesus, he's all wet on this how," she exclaimed, feeling that the boy's onesie and blouse were wet and dirty, something to change into. Adriana bent under the stroller. On the open partition was a tropical bag containing a diaper change and a pair of pants. She handed it to the woman. "Call the authorities, Walter." They undressed the baby right on the table, where there were mugs and papers, she said. "What's there to say?" Walter didn't understand. "Just say that you found the kids in the park. What else is there to say?" "Shit." The man thought I'd take it easy on my shift or watch TV. He took a pen. "My old lady doesn't let me have a drink at home, and that Yushkin." That's how it turns out. Now we'll have all night to testify. Where did you get the kids? Who are they? Where did the mother disappear to? How the hell should I know? Continuing to grumble, Walter went to the telephone and picked up the receiver. "Hello, this is the City Recreation Center. My name is Walter. I found some children in the park. I've got an older girl and a very young boy. Of course, we'll be waiting for you." The man hung up. "They said to wait," he said. "Ward." Some of the men looked at him questioningly. "Where are we going to go now? We won't kick them out into the night." Soon the police entered the room, a man and a young girl in uniform. Adriana looked at them with all her eyes. She knew that the militia took bad people away. She didn't understand why these men had come for her and her brother. The policeman questioned Ward, but also Walter, then said, "We are taking them away. If the woman's mom shows up, let us know. And tell her that the kids have been taken away by the B306E Police Department." The park workers nodded, saying, "Of course, we will do everything as it should be done." She felt a lump coming up to her throat. She held on with all her might. She was put in the back seat of the car, and the uniformed girl sat next to her, holding Ethan in her arms. At the police station, Adriana was asked various questions for a long time. "Where is your mom? What is her name? Where does she work? Where do you live?" But the girl could not answer anything. She didn't know the address. She only said that her daddy had died and her mom used to work at the hospital. Only she doesn't go to work now because she has to sit down. "Do you and your brother have grandparents?" The policewoman asked her. "No, only Aunt Betty," Adriana replied. "She comes to us when Mom is drunk and brings us food." "I see." The girl pressed her lips together and looked meaningfully at her colleague, who, sitting at the table, was drawing up a protocol. Again, a socially dysfunctional family. Calling the guardianship of someone from the Department of Juvenile Affairs. "We will determine." And yes, call the desk clerk. Have him put it in the incident report and disperse to the other precincts. If the woman's a drinker, maybe she's out on the street somewhere. Adriana was very tired. She wanted to sleep, and her stomach lurched unpleasantly with hunger. The girl handed her a glass of tea and a cookie. After a while, Adriana fell into a shallow, disturbing dream in which she saw her mother. She was walking through the fields of the park. Getting farther and farther away, the girl wanted to run after her, but her legs were cotton and did not move at all. Adriana woke up when the room became very noisy. Strangers were talking about something, pulling out papers and writing on them. And then they took Ethan and left. "Don't worry," the uniformed girl said. "Soon they will come for you." The girl didn't understand who was coming for her. What worried her most was that Ethan wasn't around. Her mother would scold her for losing her brother. In the morning, Adriana was brought to the orphanage. First, she was examined by a doctor. Then an aunt took her by the hand and took her to the shower room, washed her, and gave her clean underwear and her left robe and pantyhose. "Let's get dressed and come with me. I'll feed you," the woman said. "You are hungry." The girl nodded her head at the spacious dining room the nanny led her to. There were several small tables with stools, just like in our kindergarten, Adriana thought. She sat down at the table, on which the nanny put a glass of cocoa. "Eat your porridge and bun. Soon all the boys will wake up and come to breakfast. Then we'll get acquainted." The nanny stroked the girl's head and sighed. Another orphan. What kind of mothers are these who don't want their own children? As the crowd of children rushed into the dining room, Adriana approached the nanny and asked where my brother was. How should I know? The woman shrugged. Probably taken to the orphanage. He's still very young. Adriana didn't know what an orphanage was, but she knew that Ethan was no longer with her. And that made her chest feel cold, sad, and scared. Meanwhile, Adriana's half-a-year-old baby brother was lying on the final table in the office of Kelly, the head of the infant home. Her assistant Cindy was feeding the boy formula from a bottle. Leaning over the baby, she could eat sweet. He's hungry. He's howling on the yard, but I don't understand what these mavets lack. Kelly was indignant. How many years I've been working at the orphanage, and every time they bring such abandoned children, my heart bleeds. And don't tell me, boy, you're so sweet. Cindy nodded her head. Eyes blue, hair light molting. He's healthy too. The medic said after the examination that he has no health problems. Develops according to his age, but his mother abandoned him. And where? In the street. You really could have brought it to the institution and given it up honestly. What if something happened to the kid in the park? What's it like to leave your baby with your 5-year-old sister? I'd force sterilize those moms, Cindy, so they can't have any more babies. Do you think she's gonna grieve? Run out and beg for her kids? No way. She'll make more kids while she's drunk, and then she'll abandon them. It's a terrible thing to say in the heat of the moment. Kelly turned away to the window, was silent for a moment, and then said, "Maybe it's for the best, though." Cindy looked at the superintendent in surprise. What good now to the orphanage, then to the boarding school? And then alone in the whole world will be. No relatives, no loved ones. And you and me for what? Asked Kelly, approaching Cindy, who had already finished feeding Ethan and was changing him into a clean onesie. It's our responsibility not to let this little man be lost in a big world without support. Do you think anyone will install it? Cindy was rocking Ethan in her arms. Once full, the child peacefully pawed led the way. I don't think I know, Kelly replied firmly. I have a very wealthy foreign couple in mind. They've been asking for a baby for a long time. They live in Italy, very wealthy people, but they are not old. But that's none of our business. This boy fits their description, blonde-haired, blue-eyed. They promised to pay him well. And when they get here, don't you dare. He blurted out that he had an alcoholic mother. These Europeans are very strong. They think that if the mother drank, the child won't do well. Let's hope they don't find the kid in another institution. But let's hope so. The morning was warm and sunny. Standing on the playground next to the sandbox, Adriana greeted the children. Mothers and fathers entered the wicket, leading their children by the hand. Hello, Adriana. They greeted the teacher, and she smiled and nodded her head. The first working week after the vacation began. For a whole month, the kindergarten where Adriana worked had been under renovation, and the employees were enjoying their vacation. Now everyone was all bundled up, and again will begin full of children's laughter, worries, activities with the little ones in life. The children also missed their teacher and happily showed the toys they had brought with them, although Adriana did not approve of it. She thought that there were enough dolls, cars, cubes, and constructors in the group. Besides, there were often conflicts between children because of personal toys. My daddy bought me a new doll, Lisa said, showing the teacher a new toy. Adriana remembered what had happened to the old doll that Lisa had brought to the kindergarten before her vacation. The girls had torn her head off. Oh, how hard it had been for the teacher because of that doll. The girls had fought in the locker room. Lisa even rushed her cheek, and a drop of blood appeared on the girl's skin. The headmistress then reported the girl as a delinquent. Do you know who her father is? One word from him is enough to get us all out of here and never be able to find work again, reprimanded the superintendent Adriana. Suit yourself. Now she's telling him not to complain. But these are children. Different things happen to them. tried to justify the teacher. Different things. But I don't even want to hear what Lisa's dad will say when you tell him that. Increasingly raising her tone, said the headmistress. I already called him. Soon he will arrive in his foreign car, accompanied by security guards, and we will not show a little. While waiting for the girl's parent, Adriana was worried, but when he entered the group, tried not to show any sign. Dad rushed to her father, Lisa. Look what they did to my doll. The man hugged his daughter, looked at her cheek. The scratch had been treated and a band-aid was covering the girl's cheek. I will take my daughter home, the man said. She'll be with the nanny for a few days. Yes, of course, Adriana nodded her head. She was ready to explain what had happened between the children, but the man gestured her to stop and added, Don't say anything. Just imagine if it was not a simple scratch, but a more serious injury. Where would you as a caregiver go right now? Michael, I always say don't bring toys from home. The kids have conflicts over them all the time. Shut up, a man yelled at her. It's your job to make sure these conflicts don't arise. Leaving the locker room with his daughter, he turned around and looked carefully at the teacher. Today I only warned you. Please think carefully about what I said. Adriana sighed and looked at the father and daughter. She was not afraid of this powerful and strong man. She just put herself in his shoes and thought, how would she act if something like this happened to her child? She'd probably be nervous too, maybe even swear and yell at the negligent educator. But Adriana had no children of her own. After leaving the orphanage, the girl entered a teacher training college to become a kindergarten teacher. Adriana always loved children. She constantly fiddled with the younger ones, taught them to draw, mold from plasticine, forbade pigtails to the girls in the boarding school, and the little ones reached out to her. All day long she played with younger children, which caused ridicule from her peers. Look, our Adriana is playing mother's daughter again. They laughed. Adriana, so you all their sons at once. The older kids jeered, but she didn't take offense. She read books to the children, carefully opened at night if someone's blanket slipped, and in the morning she made sure everyone brushed their teeth and bathed. Sometimes she wondered if anyone cared for her little brother as well. Adriana never forgot Ethan. She was only 5 years old when they were separated, but she remembered her mother, their apartment, her drunken friends, and even her neighbor, Aunt Betty. Adriana also remembered that day in the park when she sat next to the stroller for a long time waiting for her mother. Growing up, she wondered more and more often why her mother hadn't come back then. Maybe something had happened to her. What if she was hit by a car and taken to the hospital? What if she'd been attacked by bandits? There must be some reason why Mom didn't go back to the park to pick them up. But with each passing year, Adriana realized more and more clearly that her mother had simply abandoned them. A year before graduation from the orphanage, when the girl was 15 years old, the head of the orphanage showed her documents, which contained scant information about the girl's mother, as well as the address where Adriana and her brother used to live. It turned out that the police managed to track down Clara, but immediately after that she was deprived of parental rights to both children. The woman was found drunk out of her mind on the street. She was lying outside a wine and vodka store, holding an honorary bottle of vodka. Passing by, passers-by were indignant. Where has this been seen? In the middle of the day on a busy street, a drunken woman sleeps. Someone called the police, and they took her to the police station. After hearing about it, Adriana decided to find her mother. The girl wanted to know where her brother was. She found the address of the barracks, which she vaguely remembered from her childhood memories. She went up to the second floor and knocked on the door. No one opened it. Adriana knocked a few more times and then went out into the yard and sat down on a bench. Jesus, Adriana, are you there? She heard a cheerful response. An old woman ran up to the girl. Adriana recognized her as her neighbor, who often took her to her house as a child and treated her with delicious gingerbread. She remembered how Aunt Betty had scolded her mother for drinking and going out, leaving the children alone at home hungry and unsupervised. I'm Aunt Betty, don't you remember me? asked the woman, looking into the girl's face. I remember. Adriana smiled. Oh, why are you sitting here? Come to my place. Let's drink tea and talk. Aunt Betty took Adriana's hand. Where is Mom? Asked the girl, and felt how strange the word Mom sounded. It was as if she was asking not about a relative, but about a complete stranger. Come, I'll tell you everything. Aunt Betty pulled her by the hand in the direction of the neighboring entrance. She put her arm around her shoulders and led her into her apartment. Nothing had changed in Aunt Betty's house. Even the furniture was in the same place and smelled the same as when she was a child. Adriana hesitantly walked into the room and sat down on the couch. Her neighbor fussed. She wanted to give Adriana something delicious. I'll put the kettle on now, she said. In a moment, the table was filled with sweets, cookies, gingerbread, simple sweets that Aunt Betty kept in case she had guests. Over tea, she began to ask the girl, how are you getting on, Adriana? No hard feelings. I'm fine, Aunt Betty. I'm fine. Soon I'll be out of the orphanage. I'll go to teacher training school to be a childminder. You love it then. No wonder Ethan was in your arms all the time, even though you were just a baby yourself. Do you know where my brother is? Adriana asked with concern in her eyes. The neighbor sighed, then chopped a corner of the tablecloth. I came to see you, Adriana, at the orphanage a long time ago. In a couple weeks, though. How did they take you, Ethan? They wouldn't let me in, said I wasn't related. Thank you for your concern. Adriana was anxious to hear what Aunt Betty had to say about her brother, and Ethan was trying to find one. After a short pause, the woman continued to speak. He was just a baby, so they put him in an orphanage. I went there, and I went to the head of the home, and she told me that Ethan had been adopted. How can I find him? Adriana was worried. There must be some thread to hold on to. There was no way. Aunt Betty cut off her faint hope. If a child is adopted, all information about his new parents and where he lives is classified. Just like that, you know. I wish I could find him. He doesn't remember me at all, does he? The girl asked. Surely, nodded the woman. How can a half-a-year-old child remember anything? And his parents hardly know that his adopted son has a sister. And if they do, they won't tell. Why would they? So I'll never see Ethan again. Adriana was upset. Life is long and unpredictable, the neighbor said thoughtfully. No one can know how it will turn out and what surprises it will bring. They were silent, drinking tea and thinking about the complexity of human destinies. At last, Aunt Betty broke the silence. Your mom is dead, Adriana, she said sadly. It's been a week since she was buried. The girl looked up at her neighbor. She didn't remember her mother well, but she still had a pang in her heart. It snapped, crushed her so that it was hard to breathe. She drank very heavily. Aunt Betty continued to tell her story, trying to choose her words so as not to hurt Adriana's soul. Drunken friends had started fires in their apartment a few times. The whole house was in an uproar. They went to the municipality, demanded to evict Slava from the house. But no way. Adriana listened to her, looking thoughtfully out of the window. Maybe it was for the best that their mother had left them in the park. Adriana herself is well fed and clothed, doing well in school. And Ethan has parents now. I wonder if they take good care of him. Do they love him like family, she thought. Oh yes. Suddenly, the neighbor got excited. When we moved into your apartment after your mother's death, I found the photo cards, didn't I? I'll get them. I kept them. I thought I'd give them to you or Ethan someday. Aunt Betty left the kitchen and returned a minute later, holding the black and white pictures. She placed them on the table in front of the girl and sat down again. Adriana gently, carefully, as if she had something very valuable and precious in front of her. She took the pictures in her hands. There they were, Dad, Mom, and her. And on the other photo, father and mother together, mother in a wedding dress and focha, and father in a suit and tie. Young and very beautiful parents were smiling, looking very happy. And in this picture, Adriana and Daddy, are next to the stroller Ethan was sleeping in. Do you know that Arisha suddenly said in a serious, firm voice, Aunt Betty, go to the council, claim that you are the daughter of the deceased Clara, so that the apartment will stay with you. If you get out of the orphanage, where will you live? I kept all my documents. I have them here. I think our barracks is going to be demolished. Maybe you'll get a comfortable apartment. Thank you, Aunt Betty. Adriana thanked her neighbor. I'll be sure to go. The woman went into the room and brought a cardboard folder. She handed it to the girl. Here is everything, documents and everything, that I thought you might remember. I don't know why I put a fireman's badge there, which was left by your father, and his certificates for excellent service. Can I have more pictures? Adriana asked. Oh, really, baby? Of course, take them. I was saving them for you. The neighbor reached for a nail on the wall. But the keys to your apartment are the spare ones. I've always kept them with me. Thank you. Adriana thanked the woman once again. They hugged each other tightly, and the girl left the apartment. Looking out the window as she walked slowly across the courtyard, Aunt Betty crossed herself. Her figure, God take care of you. Girl, the first day of work after vacation went well. Apparently, they missed each other. The kids had fun playing. They didn't even fight. Adriana also had time to have a good rest and started her duties with enthusiasm. She had a preparatory group, and she needed to study more to prepare the children for school. After breakfast, she repeated with the children the alphabet and numbers up to 10. And then she took the children for a walk outside. While the children played, Adriana and 2 other teachers from other groups were talking on the sidelines. Throw a stone. Adriana's colleague Kathy immediately shouted when she saw that their boy had picked up a beach from the ground and wanted to throw it at one of the children. I'll put you next to me now, and you'll stand the whole walk. Punished. The boy put the stone on the ground and ran away. I'll sit with them. They're not kids, they're just punishment. Theatrically raising her hands to the sky, said Kathy. But why the vacation ends so quickly? And do not say, supported her Christina. My friend and I went to the South for 2 weeks. Girls, I tell you, there is no better place to have a great romance. No, men at the resorts around us like bees were born. I don't get it. Christina, how do we manage to roll around in resorts on a kindergarten teacher's salary? Kathy asked. If it weren't for my husband, I would have starved to death on those pennies alone. Yes, you just do not understand anything. Moore's teacher raised a finger up Christina. At the resort is not money is the most important thing. Yes, I wonder what is. No, well, of course, you have to buy a plane ticket, book accommodation. But all this can be done in advance, so as not to spend vacation money later. Christina sighed and folded her arms across her chest. At the resort, the girls are the onions. What Kathy didn't understand, dragging her eyes to her mate and coworker. What onions are onions? Oh, you're a dark one, Kathy. Sitting with your husband in a paneled 2-bedroom. You don't go anywhere. Work, home, home, work. And people have long since learned to live in a new way. What's onions got to do with it? The teacher wouldn't stop. Onions mean image. What image will you create for yourself? That's how you'll spend your vacation at the sea. That's what you should spend your money on. Nice clothes, makeup, manicures, and rejuvenation treatments. You too should see a beautician, by the way. Before Christina could finish, Adriana and Kathy laughed. Christina looked so smart when she was giving advice. She was still single in her 40s. And she, not at all embarrassed, continued to share with her friends the secrets of winning suitors. I'm here before going to the resort. Went to a familiar beautician, said Christina, as if by accident showing the new fashionable manicure. So, she recommended me a beauty injection. It's like magic. It instantly smooths out wrinkles like they never existed. So where did your beautician inject you? Kathy asked with a laugh. Here, Christina pointed at the manicure with her finger on the forehead, between the eyebrows. A friend of mine has noticed that wrinkles are appearing on her forehead. They really ruin the look of her face. Not to mention they give away your age. Now you've got a forehead, eyes, money like a young girl. You should get that treatment too. Kathy took a small mirror out of her pocket and looked into it. There was indeed a small crease on her forehead. The woman wrinkled her nose, then ran her hand over the wrinkle. "What did I tell you?" With a triumphant look, Christina triumphed. "Soon your man will tell you that you have aged and look like Baba Yaga." "Oh, come on," waved Kathy. But she stopped laughing and thought about it. "And you, Adriana, you should get your barrel pierced, too. You always look glum and disgruntled." "Oh, thank you, Christina. I'd better abstain so as not to walk around with facial nerve paralysis." Adriana politely but knowingly declined. "You shouldn't." "Oh, in vain. Girls, you do not watch your appearance." Christina shook her head. "Women after 40, there is nothing left but to resort to the help of specialists, because nature at this age turns to us backwards and to the young front. Don't be crazy." Christina was still trying to argue with her. "Kathy, there's nothing more beautiful than natural beauty. Listen to you, Adriana, and I should be getting our asses tightened and our breasts siliconized. I don't think that's gonna help you." Christina waved her hand. "You after work, like a horse at the races, agonizing to your boyfriend. And from Adriana in general, men flee like the plague. What's wrong with loving my husband?" Kathy argued, but Adriana stopped the argument with a glance at her watch. She said it was time to go to the group. It was approaching lunchtime. After work, Adriana stopped by the supermarket. On the way from the kindergarten, she suddenly remembered Christina's words for some reason. She was right about something. Adriana will soon be 45. It seems like a lifetime, but no family, no children. She gives all her warmth to her children, and when they leave the kindergarten, they'd probably forget about her. However, Adriana had a chance to get married during her studies at a teacher training college. She met a student of medical school, future surgeon William. The guy was nice, well-mannered, and smart. Everyone said that he had a brilliant future ahead of him. After graduating from the university, he was assigned to the Far East. That day, he and Adriana celebrated William's diploma in a small summer cafe. The guy took her hand, looked her carefully in the eyes, and asked, "Will you be my wife?" Adriana was confused. She liked William very much. She was afraid that his parents, who were also doctors, would treat her badly because she had been brought up in an orphanage. But they perfectly accepted Adriana. Never a word or a look did not express discontent with the choice of their son. She and William had noble and necessary professions. She raised children, and he saved people from terrible diseases. When William proposed to Adriana, she did not know that he had already been assigned to the distant Khabarovsk, saying, "I will think about it." She was almost certain that she would give a positive answer. Adriana had no reason to refuse William, but when she heard that they were to move to the Far East, she flatly refused even to hear about marriage. Not understanding why Adriana was acting like this, the young man tried to ask her what was wrong with the move. Then Adriana confessed she is waiting for her lost brother to grow up and return to her hometown. That way there's a chance they'll find each other again. And if she leaves, she'll never see Ethan again. "You just don't love me," William exclaimed angrily. The reason his girlfriend had voiced seemed to him of little importance. To destroy the union of two loving hearts, Adriana did not change the guy's mind. To prove that she loved him, saying "I'm sorry," she just left. William tried to call her several times, but then left. And she never heard from her failed fiancé again. As she was leaving the supermarket with her bags full of groceries, she hesitated and tripped over the curb. The bags fell out of her hands. Potatoes, onions, tomatoes, and sausage scattered on the sidewalk. All the contents of her bags ended up on the pavement. Squatting down, the woman rushed to pick up the groceries as she suddenly saw feet in clean boots and black pants in front of her. Adriana slowly lifted her head, looking up. Standing in front of her was Michael, Lisa's dad, who had broken a doll from the girls in the group a month ago. The man also sat down and started gathering potato tubers into a bag. "Hello, Adriana," he said. "What are you doing, Michael?" "I shouldn't be helping you pick up fallen produce. Something's wrong." The man you were holding had a bag with a broken handle. "Thank you," thanked Adriana. "But I could have done it myself." "I'm sure you could," Michael said with a smile. And she was quite Arabella in front of this solid, handsome man. "Are you going home?" "Yes," Adriana answered quickly. And then she thought, why was she reporting to him where she was going? The woman held out her hands to take the package from Michael, but he didn't let her. "Then may I take you home?" the man offered politely. "Your bags are torn, and it's awkward to carry them. What if I drop them again, and I'm not there?" The man's face was completely serious, even imperturbable, but his eyes were hidden by a cheerful amusement. Adriana was completely confused, frozen in indecision, and looked then at the bags in Michael's hands, then at him. Seeing that her daughter's teacher did not dare to agree to his proposal, Michael added, "I feel bad about that conversation. I feel guilty that I spoke to you so rudely when the ribbons of mortar fell down my cheek. So consider my offer a sincere apology. Come." He took Adriana under the elbow and led the beautiful black car. The driver jumped out of it and opened the door obligingly. The woman sat down in the back seat. Through the window pane, she saw the driver take the packages from Michael's hands and put them in the trunk. The car moved off. Adriana felt awkward at having taken advantage of the suggestion of the father of her pupil. He seemed to see the whole thing as a fun adventure. "How did Lisa behave in kindergarten today?" he asked. "That's a strange question," Adriana smiled. "Your daughter has impeccable behavior. I guess you just don't want to upset me." The man tilted his head slightly and looked at the kindergarten teacher. "There's her babysitter. She just has a barrage of complaints for me when I get home. Lisa won't eat her porridge. Lisa refuses to sleep during the day. Lisa stepped in a puddle and didn't say a word. Shoes." Michael laughed merrily. "The porridge, the afternoon nap, and the intended shoes are small things." Adriana smiled. "Much more important is how Lisa perceives her surroundings and people." "Really?" the man asked. "And how does she perceive it all?" "With curiosity," Adriana replied confidently. "In this case, she is simply studying the reaction of the babysitter. In this way, the girl is having an experience that fits into a simple pattern. If I do this, it will be like this. And I thought she was just messing with the nanny and testing her patience." The car pulled up in front of Adriana's driveway. The driver obligingly opened the doors and gave her a handshake, then took bags out of the trunk of the car. "It was a pleasure to give you a ride," Michael said, and shook Adriana's hand. "Sam will help you carry the groceries to the apartment." Realizing that it was useless to refuse help, the woman did not resist. "Goodbye," she said, and went to her entrance, feeling on her back the gaze of her father's ribbon. Stepping out of the elevator, she opened the apartment door with her key and let the driver in. He strode resolutely into the kitchen, put the bags on the table, and saying good day, departed. Closing the door behind him, Adriana kicked off her shoes and hung her coat on her shoulders. She looked at herself in the large mirror above the dresser in the hallway, and Marchenko on her forehead. Indeed, the woman thought visibly and ran her finger over the skin between her eyebrows where a not deep crease was visible. Christina was right. Adriana didn't do well with men. Everything in her life seemed fine. Aunt Betty, a neighbor in the barracks, advised her to go to the council to apply for privatization. A few years later, the barrack was demolished, and all the residents were given apartments in a new 9-story building in a bedroom community. However, by that time, Aunt Betty had already passed away. Adriana, who then lived in the dormitory of a pedagogical school, was very happy to have her own apartment. As soon as the settlement of the multi-story building began, she moved in and began to equip the dwelling. Adriana herself pasted wallpaper, chose furniture, bought dishes. She hardly knew how to cook. In the orphanage, they did not teach her how to cook, so in the evening she mastered recipes for different dishes, finding them on the internet. Sometimes her friends from the pedagogical school came to her, and they organized parties. Often the girls would come with their boyfriends and bring their friends to introduce Adriana. But she did not get anything special with the opposite sex. After getting a job in a kindergarten, the girl generally immersed herself in the process of raising other people's children and forgot about her personal life. After William's proposal to marry him, she realized that the man who would be next to her would always demand attention only to him. And Adriana dreamed of finding the brother of the most dear and beloved man on earth, her Ethan. Quiet hour in kindergarten was a time when the kindergartners could not only eat lunch, but also chat. And so it was this time. Kathy, Adriana, and Christina, seated around the table, shared news. Yesterday, I found a website. There are so many cool cosmetics, said Christina, chewing the cutlet. I bought so many things and masks and balms and rejuvenating creams. Good for you, said Kathy. Only you, when you meet men, leave your passport at work. Why is that? Christina didn't understand. And so that they did not find the year of your birth. Then no massage and fingers will not help you. Your young suitors will run away, shining heels. Kathy laughed merrily, and Adriana smiled, looking at Christina's upturned face. Kathy and Christina were always teasing each other, and it was amusing to watch them bicker. By the way, you're the one who doesn't care what you look like. I'm trying to stay on brand, Christina said, fixing her hair. Our brand 100 years on the market is a great slogan for you. Kathy continued to tease her pal. Or is it? Despite 100 years of experience, I'm still functional. Oh, really? Waved her hand at Christina's spirit. The woman wanted to change the subject. So she turned to Adriana. It's your birthday soon, isn't it? You're not wrong, Majeka. Without letting Adriana answer, Kathy said, it's not just a birthday. It's an anniversary. 45 Baba Berry again. How are we celebrating, Adriana? I wasn't planning on it. Adriana tried to shrug off her friends. Yeah, so we let you. Don't get your ears dirty. No, we'll celebrate properly, wagged his finger at Adriana. Christina. Why don't we go to a restaurant? It's been so long since my husband and I have been out. Did you forget to add that? Nowhere but the couch. Kathy. Christina interrupted. No, restaurants are no longer relevant. And anyway, it's boring, and there are no decent available men. And our Adriana needs to find a date. Adriana laughed. Her friend's plans for her anniversary were too serious. And she hadn't even thought about how she would celebrate the anniversary. Guys, I do not want to cook, fuss, think about how to have fun. I'll buy a cake, a bottle of wine. We'll sit around when the kids are in the group. Nothing like that, Christina willed. You don't want to organize anything. You don't have to. Kathy and I will organize it ourselves. Am I saying that right? Kathy had no plans for the party. She just wanted to go to the restaurant and have a good time. But the look and was so convincing that she had to nod her head. That's right, do what you want. Adriana agreed. She never celebrated her birthday, never invited anyone. Last year, she bought herself a bottle of wine. And from work, she brought a box of chocolates given by her coworkers. She sat down at the table in the kitchen and set the pictures she'd taken from Betty in front of her. She poured wine into a glass, drank it, and sank into the thoughts that were troubling her. For a long time, Adriana had searched for her brother Ethan on social media, but then she realized it was a pointless endeavor. If he was adopted, they could have changed his first and last name, and even his date of birth. Ethan might not have known he had an older sister at all, and she wouldn't even recognize him when she saw him. It had been so long since she had seen her brother. Plus, he was just an infant, and children change with age. Then Adriana decided to apply for a search for her brother to a famous TV program, but there was no news from there for several years. On her birthday, she drank wine alone and thought that maybe Ethan was just around the corner, maybe even in her town or one of the neighboring towns. and there was no way to find him. Adriana was brought out of her brooding state by Christina. She brought her by the shoulder. "Hello. Wake up. Charmed. Excuse me, girls. I've been thinking. We're asking you what to get for your anniversary. I suggest beauty products or a certificate to a beautician." Kathy says money. "I don't even know." Adriana replied uncertainly. "That's what I'm saying. Why do you need money? Where are you going to spend it? Your salary alone is enough. There's always something to spend money on," Kathy decided to argue. "Oh, don't be ridiculous." Christina waved her hand at her unapologetically. "If you knew where to spend it, you wouldn't be wearing the same boots for the 3rd year. But you've got a nerve, haven't you?" Kathy was offended. "Girls, stop fighting and arguing over nothing. I do not need anything." Adriana tried to reconcile her friends. "I don't need anything." But active Christina could not be stopped. "Okay, let's not you, not me," she said to the couple. "Let's give Adriana a gift that she will remember for the rest of her life. I have an idea." The quiet time flew by. It was time to go get the kids out of bed and serve the afternoon snack. The women went off to their groups. Adriana spent the rest of the day working with the children in the group and then took them outside. It was a nice day. The children scattered around the plot, playing catch-up and ball. Gradually, their parents came to pick them up one by one, taking them home. When all the children were taken away, Adriana was collecting the toys left by the children. Suddenly, she saw Michael's father walking along the path with a ribbon. "Hello, Adriana." The man greeted her. "Good evening, Michael. And Lisa has already been picked up by the nanny," said Adriana, surprised that the girl's father came to the kindergarten, and even so late, when all the children were already taken away by their parents. "I know." The man stopped next to her. "I just really wanted to walk you home." "It's not necessary, and it's not convenient," Adriana said. She was confused, not understanding why her father had suddenly decided to take her home. The woman looked at the road. There behind the fence stood Michael's car, and next to it stood the driver waiting for the chief. "Don't refuse. It's my pleasure. And secondly, I would like to talk to you about your daughter," said the man. "It's very important to me." "All right," agreed Adriana. "I'll just go up to the group, take my purse, and lock the door. I'll wait for you at the car." Michael turned around and walked down the path towards the gate. When Adriana approached him, he opened the car door for her. "Please have a seat." He helped Adriana to sit down and sat down himself. On the way, the man asked the teacher, "How was your day, Adriana?" "Good. Nothing extraordinary happened. The children are healthy, active. No one had a fight. And that's great," she replied with a smile. "What did my Lisa do?" Michael asked. "She is a beautiful, very well-mannered and bright girl." Adriana praised her. "It's true. I had no problems with her in previous years. I think you were worried about getting out." "It's not in my rules at all," replied Adriana. "I always try to tell parents everything as it is about their children. Although many do not always like to know about their child the opinion of the teacher, but I am interested." With enthusiasm responded the interlocutor of the teacher. "Your daughter is a non-conflict and inquisitive child, but in my opinion, she lacks female affection, communication." "Adriana, I apologize for interrupting you." The man looked her in the eye. "Let's take a walk. It's only a couple of blocks from your house, and the weather today is so conducive to walking." Adriana was surprised at the suggestion, but she agreed to walk. She got out of the car and walked slowly down the sidewalk. "Let me start by saying that Lisa is not my daughter, Adriana Michael." "Whose is it then?" "My own little sister. When Lisa was just a couple months old, her sister disappeared, and then she was found murdered." What a horrible outburst. Adriana's hands. "Yes, it was a tragedy," replied Michael. But Adriana opened her mouth, but the man beat her to it. "Do you mean to ask why she calls me Daddy?" he asked. "Actually, she does. On her sister's grave. I gave my word that I would raise Ribbon as my own daughter. I've never been married, never had children of my own. At least I don't know anything about them. I just took care of the girl. Then one day she said her first word, and it was, Daddy. That's when I decided to let them think I was her father. That's an amazing story, Adriana said quietly, looking at the ribbon. You'd never think she was troubled or lacking affection, warmth, love. You make a wonderful father. Do you think they've reached Adriana's driveway yet? And the man stopped. He looked at her with his velvet brown eyes, and it seemed to her that he and Michael had been friends for a long time. Their conversation during the short walk had been very confidential. Adriana, said the man, I like talking to you so much. You are wonderful, understanding, attentive interlocutor, and a very beautiful woman. Adriana was a little embarrassed, lowered her eyes, but felt that the words of the single father were pleasant to her. I would very much like to invite you to a restaurant this Sunday. Would you mind? Michael looked at Adriana hopefully. We could have a nice meal, relax and socialize, or suggest your own program, where you'd like to go. I'll set it up. You know, Michael, Adriana smiled. You don't have to go to a restaurant to socialize and have a good meal. Really? Where to? I'm inviting you to my place. It's my birthday on Sunday. That's wonderful. I'm happy to accept your invitation. Thank you. The man took her hand and touched it with his lips. Adriana smiled with a slight tilt of her head. And when he lowered her palm, she said, then see you later. Goodbye. I will definitely be at your place on Sunday. Adriana headed for her driveway, and Michael watched her for a few minutes. He liked this calm, a little sad, intelligent and beautiful woman very much. He thought as he got into the car and instructed his secretary to pick out the best bouquet of flowers and suggest gift options. The week was drawing to a close. In the evening, Kathy and Russia went shopping. They all couldn't decide what to get their buddy for her anniversary. It had to be special, Christina insisted. Something she'd remember for the rest of her life. Why go to all that trouble, Christina? Kathy argued. The main thing is to make Adriana feel good. I don't like both. Christina exclaimed, stopping. A man should be given something he doesn't have. And you give a set, or linens, or a vase. Do you think she needs it? No, of course not. But they're all necessities. What do you think she needs? She needs a good man, that's what. Christina answered firmly. Without men, life is a bore. Kathy looked at her friend in surprise. No, of course, she had seen in various TV shows, as men are packed in a big box, and then they jump out of there, like the devil out of a snuff box, in small panties and with a bare torso. But to give Adriana a gift like that never occurred to her. Do you want to pay for a call boy stripper? Kathy asked uncertainly. Call it whatever you want. But I've decided Adriana needs a shake-up. We'll get her a man for tonight and let her figure out what to do with him. Where are we gonna get a man? Let's go. Christina pulled her friend by the hand to a bench in front of the hypermarket. Sitting down on the bench, she took out of her purse phone. Something to search in it dialed the number. Hello, we need a boy. That is, a man, for entertainment on the anniversary. How much did you feel sorry for them? Are your men made of gold? Turning off life, Christina indignantly said. Completely crazy. A man for the evening at the price of an eagle horse. Shit. What did the idea of gloating fail? Kathy, come on. There's a great department of good, quality linens here. The woman nodded in the direction of the hypermarket. But Christina was not the kind of person who would give up at the first difficulties. Pensive, she was silent, looking in front of her. Suddenly, her gaze fell on a beggar who was sitting right on the ground next to the shopping center. Do you have an idea? She exclaimed. We'll find a man for Adriana right on the street. Oh, I'm stupid. They're literally lying under our feet, and we don't see what you mean. Kathy didn't know what her friend was talking about. There's the beggar, you'll see. But that's the one we're bringing to the anniversary. And pay him what? And he'll go as sweet as a calf on a string. And they'll do anything for a penny. Are you crazy? I think it's a bad idea. Kathy said hesitantly. It's a good idea. Christina got up from the bench and with a decisive step walked towards the homeless man, stopping in front of the homeless man, in front of whom was lying an old hat with change for Mussolini. She opened her purse and handed the homeless man $1. The man nodded gratefully. Thank you. Do you sit here every day? She asked, pretending to take another bill out of her pink leather purse with rhinestones. I sit here from morning till night, the homeless man replied. Do you want a lot of money? Do you want to sell my organs? Frightened, the homeless man gathered himself, grabbed his hat, and distributed the money in the pockets of his dirty raincoat. He was about to run away from this well-dressed, strange woman, but she stopped him. Wait, what the hell do I need your organs for? What am I supposed to do? Pickle them? Trying not to scare the homeless man, the man said, Christina, I suggest you go to visit a lady. She has a holiday, a birthday, you know. The homeless man looked at the frame with empty and frightened eyes, not understanding what this beautiful woman with bright makeup on her face wanted from him. You will congratulate her and spend the evening with her. You will eat delicious food, drink wine, and I will give you this much. Christina took out of her purse 2 red $5,000 bills, $100 for one evening. What do you think of the offer? Won't the bum cheat? Still gingerly looking at Christina. That hurts. I should hurt you. You're already hurt by life. On the contrary, you will help me and I will help you. The homeless man nodded his head. That's good. That's the deal. Christina rejoiced. In short, tomorrow sit here. We, with that woman, will come to you, and then you'll get your money. She won't let you down, see? Straight in the head. The man sat down on the paving stone again and spread his hat in front of him. Christina stood next to him for a while longer, thought, and then slipped another $50 into the bum's hat. Poe stepped toward Kathy sitting on the bench. The case of the hat. Triumphant, she said. And I'm good for it, which was to prove Kathy's ideas. Colleagues seemed mad, reckless, and ridiculous, but Christina was not to be persuaded. Adventurism always fountains in her, making her go for the most reckless and crazy deeds. However, Christina always muddled out of the most difficult situations. Kathy still remembered the story, at which all the teachers in kindergarten laughed for a long time, either out of boredom, for fun, or for some other reason. She invited 5 men to her house for a date. She locked the door and threw the key out the window. When she later told how they were trying to win her attention till morning, everyone was dying with laughter. However, when the men, quite drunk, began to fight, and the situation took a dangerous turn, Christina had to call the emergency services to break down the door and let the raging men out. On Sunday, Adriana decided to sleep longer, but forgot to turn off the alarm clock in her smartphone, and it persistently notified that it was already 7:30. The woman turned off the alarm clock, but she couldn't go back to sleep. She took a shower, brewed coffee, and began to think about what to prepare for the festive table to treat her friends. Adriana was also worried about what Kathy and Christina would think of her when they saw Michael. She hadn't told them that she'd invited Lisa's father from her band to visit. Scrolling through pages of websites on the internet, she wrote out a few salads and other simple appetizers on a piece of paper and decided to bake some French fries in the oven. The woman opened the refrigerator. Yesterday, she had run to the stores and bought a couple bottles of wine. A beautiful cake also flaunted on the shelf next to the fruit. All that remained was to prepare everything. She laid out the ingredients for the holiday dishes on the table, put on an apron, and started cooking. Christina and Kathy met at the site near the hypermarket. Christina, as always, was in an elevated, excited mood. She was anticipating how impressed Adriana would be with their surprise. Kathy, on the other hand, still thought Christina's idea was foolish. I understand to introduce her to a good man, decent, with a normal job. But you're looking for a bum for her. Oh, believe me, tortured men make the best husbands. At least they're as grateful as dogs picked up off the street. I'm amazed at you. You have an answer for everything. And it's hard to argue with you. Don't argue, just do as I say. Come on. There he sits, my little dove, waiting like a sweetheart. Christina, he. I threw and went towards the homeless man, who was sitting in the same place as yesterday. The man, seeing Christina, got excited, jumped up from the paving stone, stretched out in a string. Hello, sufferer, she cheerfully greeted the homeless man. What is your name, even Alex? Said the man. He scratched his thickly stubbled chin and bent down to pick up his hat. Take the money and throw this junk in the trash. There's no need to carry unnecessary dirt from the street. The homeless man obeyed and then sank after the women. Christina brought a friend and an unfamiliar beggar to her house. Take off your shoes on the platform, or my floors are washed, she told him and immediately threw off his clothes. Christina gave the homeless man a large bag to collect his things in it, and then led him into the hallway, examined him from head to toe. For a minute it occurred to her that the clothes on the man were expensive, high quality, but very dirty and even torn. The sweater had definitely once been snow white in some places, and the jeans had almost erased on the back. But a recognizable label from a well-known brand. How long have you been homeless? She asked. About a month, the man replied. I'm not from around here. I came to spare me the details of your nomadic life. Christina interrupted the homeless man. Anyway, here's the bathroom. There's towels, razor, soap, shampoo, everything you could possibly need. Go wash up and get cleaned up. Got it, Alex? By the way, is that a name you have or a nickname? The man answered nothing, walked through the bathroom door, and locked himself from the inside. Why did you lock yourself in? Shouted, laughing, Christina. Do you think we'll be watching you? Yeah. We haven't seen your reasons. Oh yeah. Kathy poked her buddy in the side. Why are you doing this to him? He may be homeless, but he's a human being. But Christina paid no attention to her words and went into the room. She opened the closet and thought of something to wrap a present for Adriana. But what, Kathy? We'll wrap our present in a pretty wrapper. Christina was having a lot of fun. It was a thrilling adventure for her. The woman stood on a stool and pulled a large box from the mezzanine. These are my late dad's things, she said, nodding at the neatly folded shirts, pants, and jacket. The box even held my dad's underwear. I don't know why I haven't thrown it all away. I can't bring myself to do it. The voice of Alex, the homeless guy, came from the bathroom. That robe is hanging. You can put it on. Go ahead, shouted Christina. After a few seconds in the corridor appeared a homeless man dressed in Christina, satin pink robe, barely covering his buttocks and not at all on his chest. Christina held back, unable to contain her emotions. Kathy smiled, pronouncing Glamornenka. Alex was embarrassed. He was thrashing around in the doorway of the large living room, examining himself in the mirror. The women noted that after the passage, the man looked quite decent. He looked to be no more than 40 years old, although at first Kathy thought about 50 from the smoothly shaven man. The man's coiffed, blonde hair smelled of shampoo. So come here, Christina called out to him in a commanding tone. The woman began pulling clothes out of the box. Socks, underwear, pants, shirt, and tie flew onto the couch. Let's get to the examples, she said, pulling out her father's family underpants in front of the homeless man. The man blanched. He was clearly uncomfortable. Could you turn around while I get dressed? He asked, looking at his employers with an embarrassed look. Look, Kathy, barren, embarrassed. Clutched Christina again. Then added, okay, relax, we're in the kitchen if you need anything. The women left the room, leaving Alex alone with a mountain of clothes left by his late dad. When the man entered the kitchen, they darted their eyes around in amazement. The homeless man looked decent enough. The suit fit him. Vladika had no axe to grind, and the blue shirt went very well with the color of his eyes. Wow! Kathy stretched out in surprise. What did I tell you? Christina said, triumphantly pleased with herself. Washed, combed, and calmed. What's not handsome? Would you like some tea? The homeless man didn't refuse. He sat down at the table, and I put in front of him a cup with fragrant tea and a couple of sandwiches on a plate. The man happily read the bun with sausage, drinking the tea. Finally, Christina put the cup in the sink and said, "Stop eating. We're going to visit. You can eat there." She looked at her watch and started to pack. "We still have to stop for flowers. Let's hurry up," she said to Kathy and Alex. Christina was anticipating the emotions of the upcoming evening. She drew all sorts of pictures in her imagination. But most of all, she couldn't wait to see Adriana's face when she found out that they had brought her a real street beggar as a gift. Kathy thought the idea was silly, but Christina was excited and decided to see what would happen. Standing on the doorstep of Adriana's apartment, they shoved a bouquet of roses into the homeless man's hands. Kathy pressed the bell button. There was a beautiful trill and then footsteps. "Hello," the friends shouted with glee when they saw a dressed-up colleague in a white-collar dress with folded hair. "And here we are not empty-handed." The guests made their way into the hallway. Christina poked Alex painfully in the side, who, confused, hesitantly moved from foot to foot. He flinched and held out a bouquet to the birthday girl. "Happy birthday," the man said. "Thank you," thanked Adriana. She accepted the flowers and looked questioningly at her friends. "And this is Alex. Meet Alex," whispered Christina, as if nothing had happened, kicking off her shoes and heading into the living room. "This is our surprise for you," Kathy clarified. "A gentleman to host the party, so to speak. Come in, Alex," Adriana invited politely. In the center of the room stood a table covered with a tablecloth, on which plates, cutlery, and a few soldiers with appetizing snacks were arranged. Throughout the apartment spread all the pleasant odor of meat. The guests sat down at the table, and Adriana put flowers in a vase and joined them as well. "Alex, could you pour the wine?" she asked, handing the man a corkscrew. He took the bottle, stared at the label, and said, "Celebration. That's the kind of wine you need for such beautiful women." "Ha! What's wrong with this one?" "Hey, sommelier, man, it's semi-sweet, and I smell meat," Alex said with a serious look. "Meat is served red, dry. Come on, pour." He studied here intelligently. Christina pushed Alex with her elbow so that he would talk less. After drinking and snacking, sitting at the table for a while, the buddies announced that they had to go. It was part of Christina's plan. Adriana would spend the evening alone with Alex, and tomorrow at work, they would announce to her that he was a common bum. Then they'll laugh together at their buddy's reaction. She might be offended, but it was meant to be a joke. Christina was sure no one had ever gotten such an original gift. "Alex, will you help us get dressed?" she asked the man. He came out from behind the table and handed her a cloak. She slipped 2 $5,000 bills into his pants pocket, as promised. "Behave yourself, street child." With those words addressed to the bum, she left Adriana's apartment and dragged Kathy behind her. The door slammed shut. Alex stood there and didn't move. "Well, why don't you come in, since my friends ran away so quickly? Let's celebrate together," Adriana suggested. She was a little upset that Michael didn't come. She wanted to see the man again, but she thought he had more important things to do. Alex poured wine into glasses again, and Adriana brought French meat from the kitchen. "What is it?" the man asked. "French meat. Why the name?" "I don't know." The birthday girl shrugged her shoulders. Alex gladly took a knife and fork in his hands, deftly cut a piece and sent it to his mouth. "Oh, very tasty, but I would add Provence and herbs," he said. "Why?" Adriana was surprised. Since it's French meat, there must be Provence and herbs, and basil, but it's still very good. Adriana scrutinized the man she was seeing for the first time. He had a strange accent and way of speaking. "Alex, you're not from here?" she finally asked. "A little out of town," the man answered. "What do you mean?" Adriana didn't understand a bit. "Born here, but lived somewhere else." "I see. Are you eating?" "Eat? Don't be shy. I confess, I can't stop eating. Alex praised the woman's culinary skills. Can I have more of this salad? Of course, Adriana moved the bowl closer to the man, and she thought that he ate a lot, like he hadn't eaten in days, and he praises the simplest salads as if he ate them for the first time. Suddenly, Alex grabbed his stomach and started to fall on his side. Oh, that's not bad for a tank. What's wrong with you? Adriana jumped up to him, supporting him by the elbow, helped him to the couch. I can't breathe. I think I've moved. Alex rolled his eyes and started rolling around on the couch. Hang on, I'll call an ambulance. Adriana ran for the phone, dialed 03, and gave her address. Soon the ambulance doctors arrived. Entering the room, they laid out an orange medicine case and examined the patient. Let's reach the shirt, the doctor said. Adriana helped Alex undo the buttons, freed his chest from the blue fabric, and suddenly froze in place. At that moment, it seemed to her that the floor was moving away from under her feet, swaying up and down. The woman staggered, took a few steps back, and plumped into a chair. Everything swam in front of her eyes, and she lost consciousness. Adriana woke up to the pungent odor of alcohol ammonia. It hit her nose so hard that the woman shook her head, trying to find a stream of fresh air. The woman with the sick. It's nothing, said the paramedic, looking into the eyes of the recovered Adriana. Why worry so much? We gave him a pill, put him on a painkiller. He'll feel better soon. It's just that the man moved. Before that, he must have been off fatty and calorie-dense foods for a long time. Adriana glanced back and forth at the doctors, then at Alex, who was lying on her couch. The shirt on his chest had been reached. The woman escorted the doctors out and slowly, as if she were haunted before her, approached her guest. The man's eyes were closed. She bent over him and carefully, so as not to disturb him, began to stretch the top buttons of his shirt. Alex jerked, grabbed her arm. What do you want? Why are you separating me? Frightenedly, he shrieked. Don't be afraid, please. Adriana tried to calm him down. Show me what you have on your neck. Not understanding anything, Alex put his hand under his collar and pulled out a wooden pendant in the form of a horseshoe on an old shoeless. Tears appeared in Adriana's eyes. They dripped slowly onto the man's shirt. Ethan, is that you? The woman whispered. She stared at her brother lying in front of her. I wanted to hug him and hold him close, but at that moment, the doorbell rang. Adriana shuddered, got up and went to open the door. At the door stood smiling Michael, holding a bouquet and a small box decorated with a bow. Hello, Adriana. Here I am, as promised to congratulate you with us. With a confident step, he entered the hallway, handed the flowers and the gift to the hostess. Where do you want to go? He asked, inviting the hair. The confused Adriana nodded her head. Michael made his way into the living room and saw a man lying on the couch with his shirt unbuttoned on his chest. He looked at Adriana in surprise. I guess this is a bad time. You could have just not opened the door. Adriana. The man looked hurt, but Adriana had already come to her senses and took his hand. On the contrary, is this a good time, Michael? She spoke quickly. Remember, you trusted me when you told me that Lisa was not your daughter. Now I want to tell you my story. You're the only one who can listen to me without emotion. Please, sit down. Michael reluctantly lowered himself onto the table next to the table set with festive dishes. Confused, sometimes confused, Adriana told him that the man had been brought to her apartment by a friend. She'd never seen him before, but on his chest hung the pendant that was supposed to be worn by her missing for years, a younger brother. She pulled out the exact same piece from Cervantes and held it out to Michael. He looked at it, then at the one on Alex's chest. Where did you get it? He asked the stranger. My foster parents gave it to me. I was wearing it when I was brought to the orphanage in this town. Apparently, it's all that's left of my real parents. Alex, look, I have the exact same one. Adriana handed him her jewelry, these two pendants. My dad made them and gave them to my mom when he confessed his love to her. The day Mom disappeared, she put the pendants on my brother and me and told us never to take them off. And then I went to an orphanage and lost my brother. I was only 5 years old at the time. If you have this pendant, you're my brother. My Ethan, Mamma Mia. Alex exclaimed and started shouting something in Italian. Michael and Adriana looked at each other in surprise, watching the man's excited behavior. And then he switched back to Russian. I knew it. I knew I would find my sister. I believed I was coming to this city for a reason. For the next 2 o'clock, all three of them sat at the table and talked. Alex told his story to Paul. The 1-year-old boy was quickly adopted by a wealthy farming couple from Italy. They loved their adopted son very much, took care of him, and even hired a woman to teach him Russian. When the boy grew up, they told him everything about his father, who had died in a fire. Alcoholic and mothers withheld only that Alex had a native older sister. His parents were very afraid that he would look for her and leave them alone to go to Russia. Over time, Alex got an education and began to help his parents in the vineyards. And a year ago, his foster mom and dad died in a car accident. After the funeral, the man discovered a casket of papers. Going through them, he saw a piece of paper written in small handwriting. It was a letter from his adoptive mother, Louise, addressed to her son. In it, she told him that Alex had a sister, Adriana, in Russia. Ever since then, his only dream was to find her. I arrived in this city late at night, looking for a hotel, the man said. A driver picked me up on the street, but I didn't have any dollars, so he took me to a money changer. Before I could even get there, I got a blow on the head and blacked out. Then I woke up and some men were dragging me on the ground to the heating main. I didn't have any money or ID on me. It all makes sense. Michael nodded. You'd just been robbed. Yes, I was. I went to the police, but they turned me away. They told me to drink less alcohol, and the men who brought me in took pity on me, gave me food, treated the wound on my head, and then told me that I had to earn money. And they put me outside a mall with a hat. That's where your friends found me, Adriana. It's unbelievable. Adriana. Michael exclaimed. I thought it was your lover. All three of them laughed merrily. Adriana and Alex hugged each other. After 40 years, two relatives, separated by 1,000 kilometers, found each other again. We should drink to this, Michael said cheerfully and poured wine into glasses. This is the best present for my birthday, smiled Adriana, holding her brother's hand. I'm so happy for you guys. Just brings tears to my eyes, said Michael. From the beer, the wine. Alex, I'm not the last man in this town. I have connections and money. Ethan wanted to object, but Michael made a warning gesture with his hand and continued. Let me finish, please. I'll help you get your papers back in order. And then I'll help you get a job, if you want it, even in my company. I need people who speak different languages fluently. But Alex shook his head. Thank you, Michael, but I'll be going back to Italy. That's where my home is, my vineyards. It's the life's work of the people who raised me. I can't just leave everything behind. And Russia is already, admittedly, a foreign country to me. Well, you know, in any case, I've always asked for help. And just call. I'll be very happy. And you should definitely come and visit me in Italy. It's a very beautiful, hospitable country, Alex replied. Michael said goodbye to Adriana and Ethan. He hugged both of them, even kissed them on the cheeks. Totally touched by the incredible story of brother and sister. Closing the door behind him, Adriana returned to the living room, pulling out some photos from Cervantes. Hugging each other, they looked at the pictures together, taking in the faces of the people who had given them life so many years ago. And a month later, Christina, Kathy, and Michael were seen off with a ribbon on the platform of the train station. Adriana and Alex. Kathy had tears in her eyes, and Christina was saying something to keep from crying. Don't forget about us. We're the ones who helped you find each other. Low territory woman. Michael couldn't take his eyes off Adriana, as if he was saying goodbye to her. She had become a close friend lately, and he liked her a lot. Taking her hand, he said softly, "I will always look forward to seeing you." The loudspeaker announced the arrival of the train. Adriana and Alex took their suitcases and hurried to their carriage. Looking at the happy brother and sister getting on the train, they saw them off and waved their hands. "Dad, do you think we will see them again?" Lisa asked her father. "We will see them again," he replied, hugging his daughter. He had already planned to take advantage of Alex's invitation and go to Italy with the ribbon during the winter vacation.